Hello everyone, this is Ketan here, and today we're going to discuss about parajumble. Now, parajumble is one of the important aspects of verbal when it comes to all the exams. It can be CAT, XAT, MAT, and MAT, CMAT, and CET also. Now, parajumble is one of the one of the type of a question which is typically asked across all the exams in the management world. Now, even before we go ahead, let's try and understand what is the parajumble exactly and how it kind of plays an important role when it comes to CAT specifically. Okay, so parajumble is basically it's a very simple thing. So you've been given a couple of sentences. So you will have like 1 to 5 points with you, and they are completely jumbled ones. So you've got like number one, number two, three, four, and the five. Okay, now these are the sentences which are given to you. They are little bit jumbled up. They are not in the chronological order. I think you have to set them up, and if you do that correctly, you get 5 marks. Now, that's the one typical type which has always been asked in the parajumble. And if you ask me, this is quite favorite of CET. Okay, yes, quite favorite for CET. And CET will ask you such kind of questions. Now, I want to tell you how the evaluation, rather how the entire pattern got changed, and what parajumble is basically when it comes to exam. So we're gonna discuss this exam by exam. So let's try and understand when I talk about CAT, what happens exactly in CAT. So you get same stuff, so 1 to 5 things you have, but what happens is CAT being a little bit tougher exam, there is an addition. So one sentence becomes, say, one small paragraph, then the second would become again a small paragraph, so on and so forth. So the difficulty level goes up. Is it? No, the difficulty level does not go up. What happens here is, if you understand, it's not all about difficulty level. It's about given certain period of time to you. Now you will have to read all these sentences. Rather, if you look at this, if you look at only this thing, I would take it as a short RC. So yes, what you have here is you basically have a short RC, and you have to read all the 5 sentences. And you need to understand, are they in a proper order, or you have to try and fix them. Now, let me warn you here. Most of the time, students, they are in the exam, they try, and I mean, it's just a pressure that you guys are on. So most of the time you feel that, oh, it's a parajumble question and I have to unjumble the jumbled sentences out here. Guys, it is not necessary that the whole thing out here which is given to you, this whole thing has to be jumbled one. Okay, most of the time, just to confuse you guys, the entire order which is given in here, it's the correct order. You just have to use your brains, use some logic, and understand, okay, if this is actually in the order, okay, it's kind of a crux, or rather it's kind of a strategy to kind of make you guys a little bit more worried, or just to fool you guys, and then you don't have to do anything. But yes, I mean, indeed, if it's really a problematic question, then you have to go ahead and unjumble it. So that's something I would love to tell you guys that you should be really aware of. Now, let's move on to the CAT, and let's talk specifically about the CAT, what happens in CAT exactly. So CAT has 2 patterns, So there are 2 patterns of questions which is being asked, and if you look at over a period of time, CET being one of the favorite of you guys, this is what the change that I have been seeing from 2011 till 2016. So this is a normal pattern. It's a static pattern, it's a traditional pattern, it's the historical pattern, name it the way you want to name it. Okay. Now what's the change in the pattern which is happening in the CAT, or which has always been there? So yeah, so I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4 and the 5. So I've got this 5 chota RCs in here, small little cute RCs out here. Now what's going to happen is, sometimes I'm going to have one sentence which is going to be static. So yes, I've got A, it's a static sentence, you don't have to do anything to it, it's there, it's always going to be there, and then you have to play with these 5 sentences or short RCs. That's pattern number 1. The pattern number 2 is, you don't have A, which is the set one or the fixed one or the static one, but then instead you have the B one, which is the closing. So yes, the closing is fixed here. So again, you don't have to do anything with B, you have to only play the game of parajumble amongst 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the third pattern that happens, the A is fixed and the B is also fixed. So you've got these 2 chaps here, they're absolutely fixed. Again, you have to play with this 5 people out here. So this is one of the pattern. Now, most of the people believe that this pattern is little tricky, this one, and this pattern is little easy. If you ask me my personal opinion, I always believe the pattern here, this pattern is a little tough to understand. See, because guys, all the 5 sentences are not correct here. You have to understand which is the opening, which is the closing, which is the second sentence, and the third sentence, and so on and so forth. So this consumes a little bit more time. This consumes a little bit more energy, and of course, it's a little tricky. But if you look at this pattern towards my left side on the screen, which is this pattern wherein I have either A fixed or B fixed. What happens is, for the fact you know that one thing is fixed here, on the basis of this A, you can connect the next sentence, and so on and so forth. So I believe that such kind of pattern asked in the exam makes your life more easy, and that gives you an opportunity to kind of solve the parajumble in a less amount of time and with the higher accuracy. And always, when it comes to CAT, it's always 100% accuracy, no 80%, though 90%. So this is a little bit introduction about parajumble. Now, let me tell you guys something very quickly. Now let's understand how parajumble will help you to kind of score more marks, or rather, why it's so important. So I'm gonna do the comparison quickly. So I have in front of me 2014 CAT and 2015 CAT. Okay. Now in 2014 CAT, what happened was, so if you look at 2014 RCs, we had only 16 RC here. Now out of 34, when you have 16 RCs, the rest of the 18 questions are basically asked on the basis of parajumble, then para completion, then grammar, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, if you look at 2015, the number of RC, or the questions of RC, went up to 24, and then you are left with only 10 questions out of 34. Even though this was the situation, the parajumble was asked, definitely. Now, parajumble is asked in two ways. The one is the normal way, and the one wherein you have one sentence which is fixed. People call it as odd man, something like that, okay? But any which ways, if you look at the parajumble thing, right? If you're not really good with RCs, yeah? If you're not really good with RCs and para completion and so on and so forth, maybe critical reasoning, then parajumble is a good deal for you to get 5 to 6 marks in CAT sure shot. So 5 is minimum, maximum they can go on to 10. In CAT they might ask you 2 sets. In SNAP they might ask you 2 sets of 5 each. So if you look at parajumble, can you afford to not to solve it? No, you cannot really afford it. You have to go for it. And it's indeed important. See, because I'll tell you why. If you look at all the public in the market, they're only going to be focusing on RC. Maybe they will do it, or maybe they will not do it. But if you look at parajumble, people say that, yeah, parajumble is a little tough. You're not sure if you're going to get the 100% accuracy or not. And most of the people will leave parajumble. But then somebody like you, if you go ahead with parajumble and if you solve it, you get couple of marks more than the other guys. And that's how your score goes up. So parajumble is one of the best strategy for you guys. And you have a decent time. The CAT is going to be in the first week of December. If you stay connected to CAT King, if you follow our workshops and the online workshops, I'm very sure you're going to be like really pro in solving parajumbles in the coming couple of months, maybe a month or two. Alright, now let's move on to the another slide. Okay, so this is one of the strategy to solve the parajumble, which talks about identifying the opening sentence. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here for a couple of seconds, and I give you guys say 30 seconds to read through the question, understand the question, and then I shall take it ahead. All right, let's move on to the question now. So if you look at the question, yeah, it's one of the CAT question. I've taken it deliberately because I wanted to have you guys a little flavor of the CAT questions. All right, so it's 1996 CAT questions, and if you glance at the question, it basically talks about the cultures of competitions. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so it talks about culture of competition. All right, lovely. What's happening here? So yeah. So it says that, okay, let us look at the two cultures of competition, and then it talks about sentence B, competing before means, keeping products flowing, okay, and bulk processing a set of standard, all right, and the D says production tends to be repetitive, okay, so on and so forth. Now, opening sentence strategy. This is one of the strategy, but the problem here is that most of the people only believe that you just have to identify the opening sentence and you're done for the day. No, it's not that easy. Trust me, guys. You can find out the opening sentence. Now, it's a cat question is one of the important question and one of the easy question, I would say. Let us look at the two cultures of competition. By default, it's an opening sentence because that's the way you start a conversation. That's the way you start a topic. And if you look at the sentence B and sentence D, I would say that sentence B for Bombay and D for Delta, it's just an addition. That's all. See, the author here, he's talking about the cultures of the competition. So he's talking about competition. So there is one more rule which is applicable here. That's something called as, guys, general. Okay, so he's talking in a general way about the competition, and then he talks about in bulk processing a set standard prices typically emerge. Now here this guy is being little specific about it. Okay, so this again a rule that follows one of the strategy that's called as general to specific. Now this is the easy question, you can understand. This is the opening. Now if you look at, I get C as the opening sentence. Now let's do the option elimination strategy. Trust me, guys, you don't have to really spend that much time on Parajambali when it comes to cat. You got to be really smart, to understand. C is the opening. How many options I have? That starting with C. So I've got like very few, which is like 50%. That's A. That's number 1 and number 3. So second is gone and the fourth is gone. So what I have? I've got A. I've got 1 and the third one. All right. Now if I look at the C ke baad what I have here is D for Delta. So now when talking about the culture of the competition, and then the D would be like production tends to be repetitive much, does not make any sense. Okay, what makes more sense to us is that when the author opens the topic, he is talking about competition in general, and then he becomes specific, and that's the reason sentence A. And if you look at from that perspective, your answer ought to be CA DB, because that's the option you have. So I go with option number 3. Now this is the normal simple way of Parajumble. Now when life actually becomes tough, and that's something very important you need to understand, because cat, though it's predictable, you're not sure about the difficulty level. Now let's understand how to identify the opening sentence. There are a couple of rules which you need to identify the opening sentence. Now, which sentence can give me the opening sentence? Simple. The way we do RC, what do we do in RC? We try and find out the idea. Simple. The parajumble, though it's a parajumble, every parajumble has a main idea attached to it. An author or a parajumble question can never be just a random 5 lines or 5 short RCs. Remember this. This is very important for you guys to understand. The entire parajumble, though it's scattered and divided into like 5 or 6, 7 odd sentences, it has the main idea. So what becomes your main opening sentence? An opening sentence, guys, is that sentence which introduces the idea, which talks about the idea. That's going to be my opening sentence. Rule number 1. Now, is this easy? Kind of. Is this enough? Not at all. Cat is tough. Alright, let's understand how tougher it can be. Now, even though I understand the idea and everything, most of the time my options, they're like damn close. Really close. Now when I talk about closeness of the options, cat is still mild. But which are the exams? They're like literally nightmares. IIFT. I don't want to talk about IIFT because we know how close are the options here. And then what you have is ZAT. Now in that case, how do you manage it? Now there is the rule, something called that, it's my favorite. I name this rule as 2/3 strategy. So 2/3 strategy is one of the important thing to kind of understand the opening sentence. Now what do you do in 2/3 strategy? So you have 5 sentences over here. What you need to understand is, if I'm talking about this entire paragraph, and this entire paragraph talks about women empowerment. Yeah, these people are quite talking about women empowerment because the athletes have done phenomenal job in the Rio Olympics, and that's how women empowerment is going to be a real hot topic. And I'm giving you a clue. If at all you get a one of the IIM call, or if you get an SPGN call or Snap call, get ready for women empowerment. You got to know real good stuff about women empowerment, and definitely we will train you for that. Now, coming back to the main topic, parajumble. So if this entire topic talks about women empowerment, you need to understand which is that small paragraph, which is that small, little, cute, beautiful paragraph, which talks about two-thirds of the main idea. That's women empowerment. Now think it from this perspective or give it a thought. See, for example, if I remove point number 3 out of the entire paragraph and 1, 2, 4th and 5th has no value, or D means the entire idea of the paragraph of women empowerment, or if the entire paragraph does not make any sense to you, it means the paragraph number 3rd is the opening sentence, because that talks about the crux of the paragraph. Now the third thing which you need to understand, when I say opening sentence, is it important, sir, that it has to be the opening sentence? No. The opening sentence is the introduction of the paragraph. The opening sentence is that sentence which talks a lot about the paragraph, the crux of the paragraph, and that's the reason this two-third rule. Okay, now couple of things you need to understand. I'll just revise it quickly for you guys. So understand the main idea, understand the introduction, and if the options are close enough, then two-third strategy, period. Fine. So that's all when it comes to opening sentence. One of the strategy which you can apply to use parajumble or to solve parajumble. Let's move on to the another half. All right. So we've got closing sentence. Yes. So we've got opening sentence. We've got closing sentence also. Most of the time people get confused even after using strategies. They don't understand, and sometimes it's very easy to understand quickly. Oh, this is the closing sentence. Fine. So you understand the closing sentence. Work out your options. You're good to go. Go ahead, mark the option, done for the day. Now, let's understand what happens in a closing sentence. So I have this question in front of you. I have taken this question from CAT 1997. I want you guys to have a look at it and then we shall discuss it. Okay, fine. So let's understand the closing sentence. Okay, what's the paragraph is talking about? All right, let's have a look at it quickly. So what I have, but the last decade was witnessed greater voting and political participation. Okay, if one goes by, okay, mid-elections, and it is likely that the turnout in 1998 will drop by any. Okay, fine, it's still okay. Notwithstanding a good deal of speculation. Okay, so if I understand this paragraph, right, this paragraph basically talks about sub voting that is happening and the trend of the voting. Now, if I have to understand the closing sentence, even before understanding the closing sentence, what I need to understand is, let's look at the option B for Bombay. Now, what's happening here is the option B. What it talks about, it kind of look like it's one of the opening sentence. Okay, now, though the topic says that you have to understand and the closing sentence, but if you look at here, what is here is B sounds like opening sentence. Fine. So opening is it's the introduction of the political thing. Now if I move ahead, if this trend offsets, okay, which trend? Okay, if this trend offset, which trend? Okay, it's now D doesn't sound perfect. So if I look at, but the last decade has witnessed greater voting. Okay, this is the point that I'm talking about. So there is a comparison that he's talking about. So we have B as the opening one, then we move on to A, right, and then the C, because B, A, C, they are connected, and that's the reason I'm getting a link here is B, A, C. Okay, now B is the opening sentence, A is the next sentence wherein the comparison is happening, and C talks about A. So I have a connection here which is B, A, C, D. Now look at the D sentence. Now let's forget the connection that we have. Only look at D as a standalone statement. Notwithstanding a good deal of speculation on this issue, it is still not clear as to who benefits from a lower turnout. Alright, now here is the point which you need to understand. The author is saying that who gets the benefit from the lower turnout. Now this is a question which is being asked. Okay, and that's the reason the author is closing. So author has done the comparison first, and he is closing the paragraph by asking a question. It's one of the typical way of the author to write sentences or to write paragraphs. You will find this, most frequently in your RCs. So he opens up the another paragraph by ending the first paragraph on the question mark, and then he starts the another paragraph with the solution, and that's the reason D sounds more of a closing sentence. Now look at the options, which sentence or which option has D in the end. So that's only going to be, I have two options, number 1 and number 2. So third is gone, fourth is gone. Okay, now let's understand. So D is last. Okay, does it make sense? So B is opening in first, and second B is not an opening. So my answer is BACD, because we already have a link here which is BAC. Cool. Now let's this entire stuff out here. Transition words. Now what's going to happen with the transition words is that a couple of more I would like to discuss. Say for example, however. Okay, so you've got however. Okay, so you've got however. Now always remember, however is a negative word. Yeah. So whenever you use however, anything that you talk after using however is always going to be negative. Anything before however is always going to be positive. Yeah. I tried working hard on the cat or maybe on quant. However, I could not do very well. Okay. So you know that whenever there is a usage of however, okay, the previous sentence has to be positive. In the same manner, there is something called as nevertheless. And that's exactly opposite. Anything you talk after nevertheless, always be positive. Anything you talk before or pre-nevertheless, always going to be negative. Okay? You came to the class, or you came to the class very late. Okay? Or maybe let me take another example. Okay, let me let me just come up with the example. The example is like this. Fine. So I reached the class very late. Nevertheless, I will try my level best to complete the entire portion. So I was negative here, I am positive here. So this is couple of things that you need to understand. People mostly get stuck between these two, and they don't understand, which one to be used where and as to how to go about it. All right, let's move to the. So we have the pronoun antecedent. Okay, the pronoun antecedents is the typical way of participle, which is like been there since like ages. Okay, now let's understand. I give you guys again a couple of seconds. Let's move ahead and try to knock this off. All right. Now look at the passage. It's from CAT 2001. Pretty simple one. We've got 5 options in here. So what you have here is basically you're talking about some passivity, right? Passivity is not, of course, universal, so on and so forth. But look at that pronoun which is in here. It's here. That's it. Okay. Now most of the time people believe that the sentence should start with the pronoun. Okay. Now when I say it's been observed, right? What has been observed? So the main subject. So it actually talks about the main subject. So that's the reason it always refers to something. It's kind of a referencing kind of a pronoun. So here they say that, so indeed it may be on the fringe of the unsubmissive. Now, if you look at in the sentence A, they're talking about passivity, and in the end they're talking about political situation. If you look at unsubmissive, passivity is itself a negative word, and a political situation cannot be unsubmissive. So what is going to be unsubmissive? That's something which has been talked in the second line, which is attitude. So unsubmissive attitude it's talking about, and that's the reason the pronoun here it is giving reference to the attitude, which is the subject here that I'm talking about. So I get a link that fine. So what is going to be the case? So C is going to be the first, and then it's going to be B, or it's going to be vice versa. Okay, so what I have options. So okay, so fine. So I'm going to go back and check my options. I'm trying to understand the linkage between C and B. Do I have any option which talks about C and B back to back? Do I have any one of here? No, I have A, B, C, D, E. Then I have E, D, A, C, which doesn't again sound good. E, D, A, C, something is missing. Then I have C, D, A, B. So C, D, A, B is the option, and then E, D, B, A, C. Okay, so if you look at the BC link, right, I need to connect this. There's only one option, that's the fourth one, and that's the reason my answer is going to be number 4, because I found the linkage between B and C. So yes, so definitely B will come first and then C will come. So B and C. So I don't even have to look at these all the options. I get the link and I'm sorted. Fine. Now let's. Alright, so this is the final thing that we have. These are the methodologies that we have, and we are going to cover all these methodologies to solve parajumble. Trust me, we have this roundabout. We have 24 methodologies to solve parajumble. If you are pro in this, if you understand, if you practice these 24 methodologies, there is not even a single parajumble that you cannot crack. You can definitely score very well in parajumble, and 100% accuracy, 5 on 5 assured. Right now, let me discuss a couple of these things. It's not really possible to discuss everything given the time constraint, but what we have, a couple of things that I would love to discuss with you guys. Say J strategy, okay? J strategy. J strategy is a jugaad strategy. Now, what do you mean by jugaad? Most of the time, you don't understand the opening, the closing, and the pronoun and everything. So what do? You only work your way out for parajumble through options. Okay, now say you have B as the opening and then you have D as the closing, and there are 2 options in between. So you found out that, okay, fine, so I know B is the opening, D is the closing, but then the problem is, how am I going to understand which is the main one? So A might be here, C might be here, or maybe C here or A here, and you cannot afford to have negative marking. Now, this is the one methodology that you go by options, but this is not going to work always. If you're going to go for tukka or guesswork, there's a good chance that you might fall in the trap of negative marking and your score will go down. So how to beat this, how to pair this? Cause and effect. Cause and effect is one of the strategy that we will teach you in our upcoming workshops, where you understand the opening, you understand the closing, and then you find out these 2 by the usage of cause and effect, by the usage of acronym, by the usage of course of action kind of methodologies, and then you can combo it kind of, so opening and closing and then cause and effect, and you get the 100% marks. Acronym, okay, let me talk a little bit about acronym, right? So what do you mean by acronym? Acronym is nothing but the short form, okay? The short forms are like, say, IMF. Okay, so it's a rule. Say IMF is basically International Monetary Fund. Okay, so International Monetary Fund, something like that, and then the short form is IMF. Now, always remember, whenever the sentence starts, they have a full form in the first line, and then they have abbreviation. Okay, same goes with your noun and the pronoun. Okay, so when I say Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, that's going to be the first sentence. The second sentence would be Dr. Ambedkar. That's all. Shortcut, long cut. Shortcut, long cut. This is the rule. You will find it everywhere and people will tell you this. But there is a problem. Now, if I say hypothetically that, guys, say for example, IMF was found in the year 1988, hypothetically, guys, and then is a full form that International Monetary Fund, so and so forth, say lent roundabout $1 billion to India in the year 1991. Now, by the rule of abbreviation, you guys will mark this as the first sentence and then you will mark this as the second sentence. Now, that's absolutely wrong, because when it comes to a time sequence, which is universally true, the abbreviation rule will not work. And that's the reason one of my strategy here, if you look at more of my strategy here, we talk about the time sequence approach. And that's the reason, if you look at the time sequence approach here, the first sentence that is going to be is the sentence which talks about IMF establishment. So this is going to be my first sentence because of 1988, and this is going to be my second sentence because I'm following a time rule here. Alright, so long story in a short, so once you guys join our workshop, right, we have all these fundamentals for you, we have all the strategies ready for you. Now, this is what I wanted to discuss, just to give you guys a little bit of flavor of understanding parajumble. Tomorrow, what's going to be the agenda for tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to be an interesting day. Tomorrow we're going to discuss all the CAT questions. We're going to discuss all CAT questions right from 1990 to 2008. I'm going to discuss a couple of questions and we're going to apply all the strategies and some new strategies, and we're going to crack some parajumble questions only by using the logic. Alright, so tomorrow we will upload on the Facebook about the workshops and everything. That's all from today from my side, guys. I'm gonna sign off now. Stay tuned with CET King, and please do subscribe and drop in your comments. If you have any questions, just put in the comments and I shall answer you. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you so much.